If you're so hungry, why don't you just eat the dirt you're sitting in? The 25-year-old white woman's voice dripped with disdain as she looked down from the window of her pristine luxury car. As if that wasn't enough, she then deliberately scooped up some sand and threw it towards the faces of the three little girls with curly hair, wearing dirty pink outfits, sitting on a quiet street in a simple Texan neighborhood. The triplets, lost and scared, could only look up with tears in their eyes, humiliated and stunned by her cruelty. Little did she know the man approaching in the distance, dressed in a sharp suit, was the most respected billionaire in that area, and he was about to do everything to make that cruel woman pay. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Daddy, do we look like real princesses? Maya asked, twirling in her pink dress, her brown curls bouncing. You look more beautiful than any princesses in the world, David Sterling said, kneeling down to be at eye level with his 8-year-old daughters. All three of you. Mia and Mila joined their sister, spinning in identical pink dresses. The three little girls looked exactly alike with their matching curly brown hair and bright smiles. When are you coming to the festival with us? Mila asked, tugging at her father's sleeve. David checked his watch and sighed. I have one more important call to make. Mrs. Peterson will take you now, and I'll meet you there in 1 hour. Emma Sterling walked into the spacious living room of their mansion in River Heights, the wealthiest neighborhood in Oakwood, Texas. She placed her hand on her husband's shoulder. David, don't be too long, she said. The girls have been looking forward to this all week. David nodded. At 45 years old, he had built Sterling National Bank and several technology companies from nothing. Growing up in foster homes had taught him the value of hard work and determination. Now a billionaire, he provided everything for his family but sometimes struggled to be present. Just one call about the Chicago merger, he promised. 1 hour, maximum. Mrs. Peterson, the family's nanny, gathered the triplets. Come along, princesses. The Oakwood Spring Festival awaits. The girls cheered and followed her to the large black SUV in the driveway. 30 minutes later, Main Street in Oakwood was filled with people. Colorful booths lined both sides of the road, selling food, crafts, and toys. Music played from a bandstand in the town square. Stay close together, Mrs. Peterson instructed, holding Mia's hand while the other two girls held on to each other. It's very crowded today. Look, the parade is starting, Maya pointed excitedly. People began moving toward the street as the first parade floats appeared. The crowd pushed forward, creating a wave of motion. Mrs. Peterson gripped Mia's hand tighter, but a large man bumped into them, causing her to stumble. Girls, stay right here, she said, regaining her balance. But when she looked around, Maya and Mila were no longer beside them. The crowd had separated them. Maya! Mila! Mrs. Peterson called out, panic rising in her voice. She pulled Mia closer. We need to find your sisters. On the other side of the crowd, Maya and Mila held hands tightly. Where's Mrs. Peterson? Mila asked, her voice trembling. I don't know. I can't see her, Maya replied. Let's try to go back. The girls attempted to push through the crowd, but people were too focused on the parade to notice two small children trying to move against the flow. Soon, they were pushed even farther away. Maybe we should find a police officer, Mila suggested. They wandered through the festival, looking for help. After 30 minutes, they found themselves on Pine Avenue, away from the main festival area. The street was quieter here with fewer people. I'm hungry, Mila said. Me too. And my feet hurt, Maya replied. They sat down on a curb, still holding hands. Their pretty pink dresses were now dusty and wrinkled. Do you think Daddy is looking for us? Mila asked, her eyes filling with tears. I know he is, Maya assured her sister. Daddy always finds us. At the Sterling National Bank headquarters, David's phone rang. It was Mrs. Peterson, her voice shaking. Mr. Sterling, I'm so sorry. We got separated in the crowd. I have Mia with me, but Maya and Mila are missing. I've been looking everywhere. David's face turned pale. "Call the police immediately. I'm on my way." He canceled his meeting and rushed to his car. As he drove toward downtown Oakwood, his mind raced with worry. His daughters were alone somewhere in a crowded festival. Across town, 25-year-old Jessica Reynolds was having a terrible day. Her father's real estate company was struggling with a major development project, and she had just argued with her boyfriend on the phone. "No, Tim, I can't just ask my father for more money," she said angrily as she drove her white Mercedes convertible. "He's stressed enough about this stupid Oakwood Plaza deal." Jessica ended the call and tossed her phone onto the passenger seat. She turned onto Pine Avenue, taking the back way to avoid festival traffic. As she drove slowly down the street, she noticed two little girls sitting on the curb. Their matching pink dresses were dirty, and they looked upset. Jessica pulled over, thinking briefly about helping them. The girls looked up hopefully as her car stopped next to them. "Are you lost?" Jessica asked, rolling down her window. Maya nodded. "We can't find our daddy or Mrs. Peterson. We're hungry." Something in Jessica snapped. Her frustration about her own problems boiled over, targeting these helpless children. "If you're so hungry," she said cruelly, "why don't you just eat the dirt you're sitting in?" She reached down to the floor of her car, grabbed some sand that had collected there from a recent beach trip, and tossed it toward the girls. The sand hit their faces and dresses. Jessica laughed. "There's your dinner, princesses." She drove away, still laughing at her own mean joke. What Jessica didn't see was David Sterling rounding the corner just 20 feet away. He had been searching side streets after checking the main festival area. He watched in horror as a woman in a white Mercedes threw something at his daughters and then drove away laughing. David ran to the girls, who were now crying and trying to wipe the sand from their eyes. "Daddy!" they cried in unison, reaching for him. David hugged them tightly, relief flooding through him at finding them safe. But as he helped clean their faces, his relief transformed into cold anger. "Who was that woman?" he asked gently. "The lady in the car," Mila sobbed. "She was mean to us." "She said we should eat dirt because we're hungry," Maya added, still crying. David memorized the license plate number of the white Mercedes. His face hardened as he comforted his daughters. "It's okay now." "I'm here," he said, helping them stand. "Let's go find Mia and Mrs. Peterson and then we'll get some real food." He took their hands, leading them back toward the festival. His daughters were safe, but his mind was already working on identifying the woman who had deliberately hurt his children. As they walked, David made a silent promise to himself. The woman in the white Mercedes would learn that actions have consequences, especially when those actions hurt the children of David Sterling. Emma was waiting at the festival entrance with Mia and Mrs. Peterson. When she saw her husband with the other two girls, she rushed forward. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, embracing Maya and Mila. "Are you okay?" David nodded. "They're fine, just scared and hungry." "Someone was mean to us, Mommy," Maya said. "She threw sand at us." Emma's face showed shock. "Who would do such a thing?" "Someone who doesn't understand kindness," David replied, his voice calm but his eyes cold. "But don't worry, we're all together now." As they walked to their car, David looked back toward Pine Avenue. The woman was gone, but he wouldn't forget her face or her car. In Oakwood, Texas, everyone knew the Sterling family, and David Sterling always protected what he loved most. David gently wiped away the last traces of sand from Maya's cheek as they walked to the family's SUV. The triplets clung to their parents, still shaken by what happened. Mrs. Peterson apologized repeatedly, but David raised his hand to stop her. "It's not your fault," he said firmly. "These things happen in crowds. The girls are safe now. That's what matters." During the drive home to their River Heights mansion, the triplets sat unusually quiet in the back seat. Emma turned to look at them with concern. "Are you sure you're okay, sweethearts?" she asked. Mila nodded. "We're fine now, Mommy." But Emma noticed the girls whispering to each other, something they only did when troubled. As a pediatrician, she recognized the signs of emotional distress in children, even her own. When they arrived home, Emma took the girls upstairs to the large bathroom with its pink marble counters. She helped them change out of their dirty dresses and examined them carefully. "Does anything hurt?" she asked, checking their eyes for irritation from the sand. "Not really," Maya said. "Just felt scary when the mean lady yelled at us." "And threw sand," Mila added. "It got in my mouth and tasted bad." Emma hugged them tightly. "I'm so sorry that happened to you. Some people can be very unkind, but remember there are many more good people in the world." Downstairs, David entered his home office and closed the door. He sat at his desk and picked up the phone. "Michael," he said when his head of security answered, "I need information on a vehicle. White Mercedes convertible, license plate TNR 487. Owner likely female, mid-20s. Michael Thompson had worked for David for 15 years, since the early days of Sterling Technologies. "Everything okay, boss?" he asked, detecting the unusual tension in David's voice. "Someone was cruel to the girls today. I want to know who. I'll have that information within the hour." David hung up and stared out the window at the manicured garden behind their home. He had promised himself years ago that he would never abuse his power, never become the type of wealthy person who crushed others simply because he could. Growing up in foster care had taught him how it felt to be powerless. But seeing someone deliberately hurt his children had awakened something protective and fierce inside him. At dinner, the normally chatty triplets picked at their food, occasionally whispering to each other. "What are you three discussing?" Emma asked gently. The girls exchanged glances before Maya spoke. "We were wondering why the mean lady was so angry at us. We didn't do anything wrong, did we?" David put down his fork. "No, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes people are unkind because they're unhappy with themselves, not because of anything you did." "But why would she throw sand at us?" Mila asked. "That was really mean." David struggled to find the right words. "Yes, it was. And unkind behavior shouldn't be allowed to continue without consequences." Emma glanced at her husband, recognizing the careful way he chose his words. She knew that look in his eyes, the same expression he had when facing business challenges. It worried her. After tucking the girls into bed with extra hugs and their favorite storybook, David returned to his office. His phone showed a missed call from Michael. He called back immediately. "I have your information, Mr. Sterling," Michael said. "The car is registered to Jessica Reynolds, 25 years old, lives in Westlake Gardens, apartment 506, works part-time at Reynolds Real Estate." "Reynolds," David repeated. "Any relation to Robert Reynolds?" "His daughter, only child. I took the liberty of compiling a basic profile. Graduated from Oakwood University 3 years ago, active on social media, seems to live quite lavishly." "Tell me about Robert Reynolds and his business." Michael paused. "Reynolds Real Estate is moderately successful, but they're currently seeking approval and financing for a major development called Oakwood Plaza. Estimated cost, $50 million. David nodded slowly. "Who's handling their financing?" "They've submitted an application to Sterling National Bank last month. It's currently under review by your loan department." "And the approval?" "The project requires approval from the City Development Board, which you sit on." "I see," David said quietly. "Thank you, Michael. Send me the complete file." After hanging up, David opened his laptop and began researching Reynolds Real Estate. The company had been in business for 22 years, with moderate success but nothing exceptional. The Oakwood Plaza project would be by far their largest undertaking, a mixed-use development with retail, offices, and luxury apartments. As David scrolled through images of the proposed development, he heard the door open. Emma entered with 2 cups of tea. "The girls are finally asleep," she said, placing a cup on his desk. "It took longer than usual." "They're still talking about the mean lady." David nodded, still looking at his screen. Emma moved closer to see what had captured his attention. Reynolds Real Estate? That's Robert Reynolds' company, isn't it? She looked more closely at the screen. David, what are you doing? He finally looked up at her. The woman who threw sand at our daughters? That was Jessica Reynolds, Robert's daughter. Emma sat down across from him. And now you're researching their business because I want to know who I'm dealing with. Emma's expression grew concerned. Dealing with? David, what exactly are you planning? He closed his laptop. Reynolds needs my bank's financing for this project. He needs my vote on the development board for approval. And you're going to use that against him because his daughter was cruel to our children? Emma asked, her voice rising slightly. That's not like you. I'm not planning anything yet, David replied. I'm just gathering information. David, I know that look. We should report this to the police if you want to pursue it. That woman assaulted our children. And what would happen then? She'd get a stern talking to, maybe a small fine at most. She'd learn nothing. Emma sighed. And what lesson would our daughters learn if their father abuses his power for revenge? David was silent for a moment. It's not about revenge, Emma. It's about accountability. Across town, Jessica Reynolds clinked champagne glasses with her friends at Bertelli's, an expensive Italian restaurant in downtown Oakwood. To my upcoming Bahamas vacation, she declared. 1 week of nothing but sun, sand, and servants. Her friends laughed as they drank. Your life is so perfect, Jess, said Amanda, her college roommate. I wish my dad would send me on vacation whenever I wanted. Jessica rolled her eyes. Trust me, he's being super annoying right now. All he talks about is this Oakwood Plaza project. The most important development in our company's history. She mimicked her father's voice. Whatever, as long as he keeps paying my credit card bills. The next morning, Jessica woke up at 11:30. She checked her phone to find 3 missed calls from her father. With a groan, she called him back. Finally, Robert Reynolds said when he answered, I need you at the office by 1 o'clock. The models for Oakwood Plaza arrived, and we're meeting with potential retail tenants tomorrow. Dad, I'm not even awake yet, Jessica complained. Can't you handle it? Jessica, you need to start taking the business seriously. Someday, all of this will be yours, and you haven't shown the slightest interest. Fine. I'll be there by 1:30. Jessica hung up and flopped back on her pillow, unaware that her cruel moment with 3 little girls would soon connect to her father's business in ways she couldn't imagine. At the Sterling home, David sat at the breakfast table watching his daughters eat cereal. They seemed better this morning, though still not quite their usual energetic selves. His phone chimed with an email. The subject line read, Reynolds Real Estate, Complete Profile. He opened it to find a comprehensive report on the Reynolds family business, including financial statements, loan applications, and personal information on both Robert and Jessica Reynolds. David, you promised to take the girls to the park today, Emma reminded him as she entered the kitchen. Of course, he said, putting his phone away. I'm all yours today, princesses. But as he smiled at his daughters, his mind was already forming a plan. Not for revenge, but for something more permanent. A lesson that would transform Jessica Reynolds from the inside out. David spent the day at the park with his daughters, pushing them on swings and watching them play. But his mind kept returning to the Reynolds family and the information in the report. As he tucked the girls into bed that evening, he made his decision. 7 days after the incident at the Spring Festival, Robert Reynolds sat at his desk reviewing paperwork for the Oakwood Plaza project. His phone rang. Mr. Reynolds? This is Clark from the Environmental Protection Agency. We need to schedule an inspection of the Oakwood Plaza site. Robert frowned. We already completed all environmental assessments 3 months ago. Yes, sir. This is a follow-up. We received information about potential wetland concerns that weren't addressed in your initial report. Wetland concerns? There are no wetlands anywhere near that property. Nevertheless, we need to conduct an inspection before you can proceed. The soonest we can schedule is next Tuesday. After hanging up, Robert stared at his phone in frustration. Another delay. The project was already behind schedule. His assistant knocked on his door. "Mr. Reynolds, the city zoning department sent an email about discrepancies in the permit applications." "What discrepancies?" Robert snapped, opening the email on his computer. "We triple-checked everything before submission." He read quickly, his frown deepening. The email cited minor irregularities in the property boundary measurements that required correction before the permits could be approved. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. Across town at Sterling National Bank, David entered the loan department and approached Lisa Chen, the senior loan officer. "Lisa, good morning," he said casually. "How are things?" "Busy as always, Mr. Sterling. Did you need something specific?" "Actually, yes. I noticed the Reynolds real estate loan application for Oakwood Plaza is under review. What's the status?" Lisa pulled up the file on her computer. "It's in process. Initial assessment looks solid, though." David nodded. "I'd like you to request additional documentation on their cash flow projections and contractor agreements, and perhaps a more detailed environmental impact statement." Lisa looked surprised. "That's more than we typically require for this type of project." "I know, but it's a significant loan, and I want to be certain we're exercising proper due diligence." "Of course, Mr. Sterling. I'll send the request today." Later that afternoon, Jessica Reynolds tried on swimsuits in an expensive boutique. Her phone rang repeatedly, but she ignored it until she had selected the perfect bikini for her Bahamas trip. "Dad, what's so urgent?" she answered finally. "I'm shopping." "Jessica, I need you to come to the office. We have issues with the Oakwood Plaza project." "Now? I'm busy." "Yes, now. This is important." Jessica sighed dramatically. "Fine, I'll be there in an hour." When Jessica arrived at Reynolds Real Estate, she found her father looking stressed and tired. "What's going on?" she asked, dropping her shopping bags on a chair. "Suddenly everyone wants additional paperwork for Oakwood Plaza. The EPA is scheduling a new environmental inspection. The city found discrepancies in our permit applications. Now the bank wants more documentation for the loan." Jessica checked her nails, barely listening. "So? Isn't that normal?" "Not all at once, and not at this stage of the process. Something doesn't feel right." "You're being paranoid, Dad. It's probably just bureaucracy." Robert looked at his daughter, wishing she would take an interest in the business that would someday be hers. "This project represents 20% of our company's total assets, Jessica. If it fails, we're in serious trouble." "It won't fail. It never does." Jessica picked up her shopping bags. "Can I go now?" "I'm meeting friends for dinner." That evening, David Sterling met with Sarah Chen at her law office. Sarah had been David's friend and legal advisor for 15 years since he started his first company. "Thanks for meeting after hours," David said, accepting the coffee she offered. "Of course." "What's so urgent?" I need your legal opinion on something." David explained what happened to his daughters and revealed his actions regarding Reynolds Real Estate. Sarah listened carefully, then leaned back in her chair. "David, you're walking a dangerous line. Requesting additional documentation from a loan applicant is within your rights as bank owner. But if you're targeting this company because of a personal vendetta, that could be considered an abuse of power." "I'm not doing anything illegal," David replied. "Legal and ethical aren't always the same thing. Revenge isn't justice, and you could destroy your own reputation if this becomes public." "It's not revenge," David insisted. "It's accountability." Sarah studied her old friend. "The David Sterling I know built his success on integrity and fairness. Don't compromise that now." "I appreciate your concern, Sarah, but there's more to this situation." David handed her a folder. "I had my team investigate Reynolds Real Estate more thoroughly. Look what they found." Sarah opened the folder and read silently. Her expression changed from concern to surprise. "Worker safety violations? Undocumented workers paid below minimum wage? These are serious issues." "Exactly. Reynolds cuts corners to increase profits. That sand Jessica threw at my daughters is a symbol of how the Reynolds family treats people they consider beneath them." Sarah sighed. "I understand your anger, David, but be careful. Make sure your actions are about justice, not vengeance." At home, Emma Sterling checked on the triplets before bed. She found Maya sitting up looking thoughtful. "What's on your mind, sweetie?" Emma asked, sitting beside her. "Mommy, why was the sand lady so mean to us?" Emma stroked her daughter's curly hair. "I don't know, Maya. Sometimes people do unkind things because they're having a bad day or because no one taught them better." "Will she do mean things to other kids too?" The question caught Emma off guard. "I hope not. Maybe she'll learn to be kinder." Daddy looked really angry when he saw her. Emma chose her words carefully. "Your daddy loves you very much. He wants to protect you." "Is he going to do something to the sand lady?" Emma hesitated. "I think your daddy wants to make sure she understands that being unkind to others is wrong." After leaving the girls' room, Emma found David in his office, still working. She closed the door behind her. "Maya is asking questions about the sand lady and what you're going to do to her." David looked up. "What did you tell her?" "That you want to make sure this woman learns being unkind is wrong." "David, our daughters are watching how you handle this." "I know. That's part of why this matters." David turned his computer screen toward Emma. "Look what my investigators found about Reynolds Real Estate." Emma read the screen, her expression growing serious. "These are real safety violations, workers being paid unfairly." "Yes, Robert Reynolds built his business on exploitation. His daughter learned from his example." Emma sat down across from David. "So what's your plan?" "I'm going to use my position legitimately to hold them accountable for actual wrongdoing. Not because of what Jessica did to our daughters, but because it's the right thing to do." "And the loan application? The permit issues?" "Standard procedures just being applied thoroughly. Nothing illegal or improper." Emma studied her husband's face. "Just be careful you don't become someone our daughters wouldn't recognize in your pursuit of justice." The next morning, David called a meeting with his team at Sterling National Bank to review all pending development loans. He was careful to treat the Reynolds application the same as others, asking thoughtful questions about each project. Afterward, he visited his daughter's school to discuss an idea that had been forming in his mind. The principal, Mrs. Jennings, welcomed him warmly. "Mr. Sterling, what brings you here today?" "I've been thinking about starting a community program focused on teaching empathy in schools," David explained. "Something that helps children understand the importance of kindness." Mrs. Jennings smiled. "That sounds wonderful. What inspired this idea?" David thought of his daughters, sitting on that curb, crying after Jessica's cruelty. "I believe kindness needs to be taught explicitly, not just assumed," he said. "I'd like to develop a curriculum that could eventually be used nationwide." As he drove back to his office, David's phone rang. It was Michael Thompson. "Mr. Sterling, our investigators found something else about Reynolds Real Estate you should see. They've been falsifying safety inspection reports on their buildings for years." David's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Send me everything, and contact Sarah Chen. I want her legal opinion on how to proceed." With each new piece of information, David became more certain that his approach to the Reynolds family wasn't just about his daughters anymore. It was about a pattern of exploitation that needed to be stopped. The plan forming in his mind was no longer just about teaching Jessica Reynolds a lesson. It was about transforming a system that allowed people like her to be treated like she was the Reynolds family to profit from mistreating others. David arrived at his office after speaking with Michael Thompson, his mind filled with the new information about Reynolds Real Estate. The falsified safety reports showed a pattern of dishonesty that went beyond cutting corners. People could get hurt. 3 weeks had passed since Jessica Reynolds threw sand at the Sterling triplets. During this time, small but significant changes had affected the Reynolds family business. That morning, Robert Reynolds slammed his phone down on his desk after another frustrating call. His assistant, Linda, looked up with concern. "Is everything all right, Mr. Reynolds?" "No, it's not all right. That was Horizon Construction backing out of our project. They're the third subcontractor this week to suddenly have scheduling conflicts." Robert ran his hands through his thinning hair. "Without them, we can't meet our timeline for Oakwood Plaza." "Should I start calling other contractors?" "Yes, immediately. And get me Tom Harris at Sterling National Bank. I want to know what's happening with our loan application." Linda hesitated. "I called him yesterday, sir. He said it's still under review." Robert's face reddened. "It's been under review for 3 weeks. This isn't normal." While her father dealt with mounting business problems, Jessica Reynolds lounged beside her apartment pool, talking on the phone with her friend Amanda. "I've packed 6 swimsuits for the Bahamas," Jessica said, adjusting her sunglasses. "The hotel looks amazing online. Private beaches, 5 restaurants, and spa services included." "Your life is so perfect," Amanda replied. "When do you leave?" "Next Tuesday. Dad keeps trying to get me to postpone because of business issues, but that's not happening. I've been planning this trip for months." "Speaking of your dad, is everything okay with his company? Tim mentioned something about the Oakwood Plaza project having problems." Jessica sighed. "Dad's always stressed about something. Business is boring. Anyway, want to get drinks tonight at Skyline Lounge?" Across town, David Sterling sat in a conference room with educational consultants discussing his new initiative. "The Kindness Matters program will focus on teaching empathy in schools," David explained. "We'll develop age-appropriate curriculum materials, train teachers, and create activities that help children understand the impact of their actions on others." Dr. Melissa Peters, an educational psychologist, nodded approvingly. Research shows that empathy can be taught effectively, especially to young children. What inspired this program, Mr. Sterling? David thought carefully before answering. "Let's just say I've witnessed how a moment of cruelty can affect children deeply. I believe we need to be more intentional about teaching kindness." Later that afternoon, Emma took the triplets to Riverfront Park. She noticed how they stayed close together, holding hands tightly whenever another person walked near them. "Girls, would you like to play on the swings?" Emma asked. Mila looked around nervously. "There are too many people over there. Are you worried someone might be mean to you again?" Emma asked gently. Maya nodded. "What if the Sand Lady comes back?" Emma knelt down to their level. "The Sand Lady doesn't come to this park. And remember, most people are kind. One person was mean to you, but many more people are nice." "Like Daddy?" Mia asked. "Yes, like Daddy." Emma smiled, though her mind was troubled by how the incident had affected her daughters. At City Hall, the Oakwood Council was meeting to review pending development projects. David Sterling sat quietly as other board members discussed various proposals. When Oakwood Plaza came up for discussion, Councilman Jenkins raised his hand. "I've reviewed the environmental reports for this project, and I have concerns about the impact on local drainage systems. I move that we place this approval on hold pending further studies." The motion passed easily. David had not spoken during the discussion, nor had he needed to. The evidence spoke for itself. After the meeting, David's phone rang. It was Sarah Chen. "The council just placed Oakwood Plaza on hold," she said. "And I heard from contacts that Reynolds has lost multiple subcontractors. David, this is looking more and more like a coordinated effort." "I haven't done anything improper," David replied calmly. "I'm simply ensuring that all proper procedures are followed." "Meet me at my office in 1 hour," Sarah insisted. When David arrived at Sarah's law office, she was waiting with a serious expression. "Your proper procedures are starting to look like a vendetta," Sarah said as soon as the door closed. "The loan review, the environmental concerns, the permit issues, and now subcontractors backing out. It's too much to be coincidence." "I haven't threatened anyone or broken any rules," David insisted. "I've simply raised legitimate questions based on real evidence." "And the subcontractors?" "Perhaps they learned about Reynolds' history of underpaying workers and decided they didn't want to be associated with such practices." Sarah shook her head. "David, I understand your anger about what happened to your daughters, but this campaign against Reynolds could backfire. You're walking a dangerous line between justice and revenge." "It's not revenge," David said firmly. "It's accountability. My investigators have uncovered serious violations that put workers and future building occupants at risk." He handed her a folder. "This is their latest report. Reynolds has been using substandard materials while charging premium prices. They've falsified inspection documents to cover it up." Sarah reviewed the documents, her expression growing more troubled. "This is serious, David. If true, it's criminal negligence." "Exactly. This isn't about sand thrown at my daughters anymore. It's about stopping dangerous business practices." Meanwhile, Robert Reynolds met with his business partner, Jack Wilson, in the conference room of Reynolds Real Estate. "Something isn't right, Jack," Robert said, pacing the room. "These aren't normal business challenges. It feels coordinated." Jack nodded. "I agree. The timing is too perfect. All these problems started exactly 3 weeks ago." "But who would target us like this, and why?" Jack thought for a moment. "Who sits on both the city development board and owns the bank you need for financing?" Robert stopped pacing. "David Sterling. But why would he have a problem with us? We've never even worked together. Did you or anyone in the company have any interaction with Sterling recently? Even something small?" Robert shook his head. "Not that I know of. Jessica met him once at a charity event last year, but that's it." "Speaking of Jessica, where is she? Shouldn't she be helping with this situation?" Robert sighed. "Shopping for her vacation, probably. She doesn't understand the seriousness of what we're facing." Back at the Sterling home, David worked in his office on the marketing materials for the Kindness Matters program. His phone buzzed with a text from Michael Thompson. "Billboard locations secured. Ready when you are." David opened his computer and reviewed the billboard designs. Each featured the smiling faces of his 3 daughters with the message, "How we treat others matters." The first billboards would go up across Oakwood next week. Emma entered his office with a cup of tea. "The girls are asleep. They asked again about the sand lady today at the park." David turned his computer screen toward her. "What do you think?" Emma studied the billboard design. "It's beautiful, but I'm concerned about using the girls' images so publicly. They won't be identified by name, and they're excited about being part of it. Maya said she wants to help other kids learn to be kind." Emma sat down across from him. "This is becoming something bigger than I expected." "It needs to be," David replied. "The Reynolds business practices affect hundreds of people, workers not receiving fair wages, buildings constructed with unsafe materials. This isn't just about our daughters anymore." "And what about Jessica? Will she learn anything from this?" David looked at the billboard design showing his daughter's innocent faces. "She will. When she sees these billboards, she'll recognize the girls. She'll realize who they are and what she did. And then, when her father's business is struggling, she'll understand that actions have consequences." "That sounds like revenge, David." "No. Revenge would be destroying their business completely, which I could do with what I know now. Instead, I'm going to offer them a choice: face the consequences of their actions or transform their business and themselves." As David said these words, he wasn't sure if he truly believed them. Part of him did want Jessica Reynolds to suffer for what she had done, but as he looked at his daughters' smiling faces on the screen, he knew that teaching them about true justice was more important than any desire for revenge. Outside the Reynolds real estate office, workers were preparing to install the first Kindness Matters billboard directly across the street. By morning, Jessica Reynolds would see the faces of the 3 little girls she had taunted now looking down at her with their innocent smiles and a message about kindness that would be impossible to ignore. The early morning sun reflected off the newly installed billboard across from Reynolds Real Estate. The workers finished their job just as the city was waking up. The massive sign showed 3 identical little girls with curly brown hair and bright smiles, alongside the words, "How we treat others matters." At the bottom, in smaller text, "Kindness Matters, a Sterling Foundation initiative." Jessica Reynolds arrived at her father's office at 9:30 that morning, annoyed at being called in so early. As she parked her white Mercedes convertible, something caught her eye. She looked up at the new billboard and froze. Those faces, those 3 identical little girls. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth as recognition hit her. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." She stared at the billboard, suddenly remembering the 3 little girls sitting on the curb near Pine Avenue. The girls she had taunted. The girls she had thrown sand at. With shaking hands, Jessica pulled out her phone and searched Sterling Triplets Oakwood. Dozens of news articles appeared. The top story: Billionaire David Sterling launches $10 million Kindness Matters initiative inspired by daughters. Jessica clicked on the article and saw more photos of the 3 girls. They were identified as Maya, Mia, and Mila Sterling, 8-year-old daughters of David Sterling, owner of Sterling National Bank and several technology companies. "Oh my God," Jessica whispered. The realization hit her like physical pain. The lost children she had been cruel to were the daughters of the most powerful man in Oakwood. Inside the building, Robert Reynolds was on the phone, his face red with anger. "What do you mean, loan denied? We've been banking with Sterling National for 15 years. The loan officer's voice remained calm. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds." After careful review, the Risk Assessment Committee has determined that Reynolds Real Estate doesn't meet our current lending requirements. "This is absurd. What requirements don't we meet?" "The denial letter has been emailed to you with full details. If you'd like to appeal the decision, you can submit a request in writing to the committee." Robert hung up and slammed his fist on the desk. Without the Sterling National Bank loan, Oakwood Plaza was dead. They didn't have time to secure alternate financing. His assistant Linda knocked softly. "Mr. Reynolds, your daughter is here. She seems upset." Jessica burst into the office, her face pale. "Dad, I need to talk to you." Robert waved her in impatiently. "Not now, Jessica. Sterling National just denied our loan. The entire Oakwood Plaza project is in jeopardy. Dad, that's what I need to tell you. I know why this is happening." Robert looked up, suddenly interested. "What do you mean?" "Those billboards across the street with the 3 little girls? They're David Sterling's daughters." Jessica's voice trembled. "And I did something terrible to them 3 weeks ago." Across town, David Sterling stood at a podium in the Oakwood Elementary School auditorium. Cameras flashed as he announced the Kindness Matters initiative. "Today, I am proud to announce a $10 million commitment to develop and implement empathy education in schools across our nation," David said. "This program will create age-appropriate curriculum materials that teach children the importance of kindness and the impact their actions have on others." Behind him, Emma sat with the triplets, all wearing matching blue dresses. Maya held her mother's hand tightly. A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Sterling, what inspired this initiative?" David gestured for Maya to join him at the podium. She walked forward shyly. "Would you like to tell them, Maya?" David asked gently. Maya nodded and spoke into the microphone. "A few weeks ago, me and my sisters got lost at the Spring Festival. We were scared and hungry. A mean lady in a car saw us and instead of helping, she threw sand in our faces." Maya paused. "It made us feel really bad. We want other kids to know that being kind is important," the audience murmured in sympathy. Cameras flashed more rapidly. Another reporter asked, "Will you identify this person who was cruel to your daughters?" "No," David replied firmly. "This initiative isn't about one person or one incident. It's about creating a culture of kindness in our communities." After the press conference, David checked his phone. He had 15 missed calls from Robert Reynolds. His plan was working exactly as expected. Back at Reynolds Real Estate, Robert listened in growing horror as Jessica described what she had done to the Sterling triplets. "You did what?" Robert shouted when she finished. "You threw sand in the faces of David Sterling's daughters? What were you thinking?" "I didn't know who they were," Jessica cried. "I was having a bad day, and they were just some kids on the curb." "Just some kids? Jessica, what kind of person have you become, throwing sand at lost children?" Jessica's tears flowed freely now. "I know it was horrible. I don't know why I did it." Robert paced the office, connecting the dots. "So Sterling saw you mistreat his daughters, and now he's systematically destroying our business. The loan rejection, the permit issues, the environmental concerns, the subcontractors backing out, it's all him." "What can we do?" Jessica asked in a small voice. "I need to talk to him." Robert picked up his phone and dialed Sterling National Bank again. "This is Robert Reynolds. I need to speak with David Sterling immediately. It's urgent." At home that evening, Emma found David in his office reviewing final details for the Kindness Matters website launch. "The press conference went well," she said, sitting across from him. "The girls were wonderful." David nodded. "Maya was very brave." "Robert Reynolds called me at the clinic today," Emma said quietly. "He's desperate to speak with you." David looked up. "He called you?" "Yes. He said he couldn't reach you at the office or on your cell. David, I think your plan has worked." Jessica recognized the girls on the billboard, and now her father knows what she did. "Good," David said simply. Emma studied her husband's face. "What happens now? Has your need for justice been satisfied?" Before David could answer, his phone rang. It was Sarah Chen. "David, I've compiled the final report on Reynolds Real Estate," Sarah said. "It's worse than we thought. They've been systematically underpaying workers for years. They've used substandard materials in at least 5 buildings. And they've falsified safety inspection documents to cover it up." "Send me the complete file," David replied. "And Sarah, I'm meeting with Robert Reynolds tomorrow. I'd like you to be there." After hanging up, David turned to Emma. "Robert Reynolds has been exploiting workers and endangering lives to maximize profits. His daughter learned cruelty from his example." "So, what will you do?" Emma asked. "Offer them a choice. Face public exposure and legal consequences, or agree to change, truly change, how they conduct business and treat people." The next morning, David arrived early at his office in Sterling Tower. The top floor provided a panoramic view of Oakwood, including the River Heights neighborhood where they lived and the downtown area where Reynolds Real Estate operated. Sarah Chen arrived with a thick folder of documents. "Are you sure about this, David? You're walking a fine line between justice and personal vendetta." "I'm sure," David replied. "Everything we've done has been legal and based on legitimate issues with their business practices. This isn't just about what Jessica did to my daughters anymore." David's assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Sterling, Robert and Jessica Reynolds are here for their 9 o'clock appointment. Make them wait 15 minutes, David instructed. Then show them in." When Robert and Jessica finally entered David's office, Jessica could barely look up. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by visible anxiety. Robert attempted to appear businesslike, but his face showed strain. "Thank you for meeting with us, Mr. Sterling," Robert began. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding that we need to clear up." David remained silent, studying them both. Jessica stared at the floor. "My daughter has something she would like to say," Robert continued, nudging Jessica. Jessica finally looked up, her eyes red from crying. "Mr. Sterling, I'm truly sorry for how I treated your daughters. There's no excuse for what I did. It was cruel and thoughtless." David still said nothing, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "We understand if you're upset," Robert added quickly, "but surely there are better ways to resolve this than by targeting our business." David finally spoke. "Jessica, do you remember exactly what you said to my daughters that day?" Jessica swallowed hard. I told them, if they were hungry, they should eat the dirt they were sitting in. Then I threw sand in their faces and drove away laughing. And why would you do that to 3 lost, frightened children? I don't know, Jessica whispered. I was angry about other things. They were just there. David nodded slowly, then turned to Robert. While investigating your daughter's character, Mr. Reynolds, I discovered something far more troubling about your business practices. He opened the folder Sarah had brought and began laying out documents on his desk. Worker exploitation, building safety violations, falsified inspection reports. The list goes on. Robert's face paled. This meeting isn't about business practices. It's about resolving a personal issue between my daughter and your family. You're wrong, Mr. Reynolds, David said calmly. It's about both. The cruelty your daughter showed to my children is directly connected to how you conduct business. You've built wealth by exploiting those with less power, and she learned from your example. Robert Reynolds' face flushed with anger. How dare you? These are standard industry practices. Every developer in Texas operates this way. David held up his hand, stopping Robert mid-sentence. No, Mr. Reynolds. Paying workers less than minimum wage is not a standard practice. Using materials that don't meet safety codes is not acceptable. Falsifying inspection documents is illegal. Robert glanced at Sarah Chen, who sat quietly in the corner of the office taking notes. Who is she? Why is she here? This is Sarah Chen, my legal advisor, David explained. She's here to document our conversation. You're recording this? Robert's voice rose. That's it. This meeting is over. Come on, Jessica. Jessica didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the documents spread across David's desk. Photographs of unsafe construction sites, copies of falsified safety reports, statements from underpaid workers. Dad, she whispered, is this true? Have we been doing these things? Robert grabbed his daughter's arm. We're leaving. I'll have my lawyers contact you, Sterling. This is corporate espionage. David remained calm. Everything in these files was obtained legally. Public records, interviews with your former employees, and inspections of your properties that anyone can request. And I've already shared copies with the appropriate regulatory agencies. Robert froze. What are you saying? I'm saying that Reynolds Real Estate is facing not just financial ruin but potentially criminal charges. Your business practices have put people at risk and stolen wages from those who can least afford it. Jessica sank into a chair, her face pale. Dad, please tell me this isn't true. Robert's confident facade crumbled. He sat down heavily next to his daughter. The construction business has thin margins, Jessica. Everyone cuts corners sometimes. Not like this, David said, pushing forward a photograph of a building support beam clearly not meeting code requirements. This isn't cutting corners. This is endangering lives. The room fell silent. Robert stared at the documents, his shoulders slumped. What do you want, Sterling? He asked finally. Money? An apology? What will make this go away? David leaned forward. I don't want your money. What I want is for you both to face the consequences of your actions, but I'm going to offer you a choice. Sarah handed David another folder. He opened it and removed 3 typed pages. Option 1. I release all of this information to the public. Your reputation is destroyed. Regulatory agencies file charges. You likely lose your business and possibly face jail time. Jessica gasped. Tears streamed down her face. Option 2. David continued, you agree to 3 conditions. He placed the pages on the desk in front of them. First, Reynolds Real Estate will pay fair wages with back pay to all workers who were underpaid over the past 5 years. Second, you will fix all safety issues in every building your company has constructed at your own expense. Third, he turned to Jessica, you will complete 1,000 hours of community service working with children in low-income areas of Oakwood. Robert and Jessica stared at the document in shock. This would bankrupt us, Robert said, scanning the pages. The back pay alone would cost millions. You have assets, David replied. Your vacation home in Aspen, your yacht, your art collection. Sell them. Why children? Jessica asked quietly. Why make me work with children specifically? Because children are vulnerable, Jessica. They depend on adults to protect them, not harm them. My daughters were vulnerable when you chose to be cruel to them. You need to learn what it means to care for those who cannot protect themselves. Robert pulled his daughter close and whispered urgently in her ear. Jessica listened, occasionally shaking her head. Finally, she pulled away from her father. I accept your conditions, Mr. Sterling, she said before her father could speak. All of them. Jessica! Robert protested. We need to consult our lawyers first. No, Dad, we did this. We have to fix it. Jessica wiped her tears and looked directly at David for the first time. Where will I do my community service? Oakwood Children's Center, David replied. It serves children from the poorest neighborhoods in the city. The director, Marcus Washington, is expecting you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, Jessica repeated, nodding. Ms. Chen will oversee your compliance with all conditions, David continued. She'll require weekly reports on the building repairs, payment schedules for workers, and confirmation of your service hours. And if we meet all these conditions? Robert asked. What then? Then the information remains private, except what's already been shared with regulatory agencies. They may still impose fines, but those will be less severe if you've already taken steps to correct the problems. Robert nodded slowly, defeat evident in his posture. May I see a pen? Sarah handed him one and Robert signed the agreement. Jessica signed next, her hand trembling slightly. You've made the right choice, David said, taking the signed document. Not the easy one, but the right one. As they stood to leave, Jessica paused. Mr. Sterling, may I ask how your daughters are doing? After what I did to them? David's expression softened slightly. They were frightened and confused. They couldn't understand why a stranger would be deliberately cruel to them, but they're resilient. Please tell them I'm truly sorry, Jessica said softly. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. After the Reynolds left, Sarah gathered the documents from David's desk. That went exactly as you planned, she observed, almost too perfectly. They had no choice, David replied. The evidence was overwhelming. What happens now? Do you think they'll actually change? David walked to the window looking out over Oakwood. Robert will do whatever it takes to save his business. The real question is whether Jessica's apology was genuine or just another performance to get what she wants. And how will you know the difference? Time will tell. 1,000 hours is nearly 6 months of full-time work. No one can pretend that long. The next morning, Jessica arrived at Oakwood Children's Center at 7:45. The brick building was old and clearly underfunded, with peeling paint and a small playground with outdated equipment. She sat in her car, staring at the building. Her designer clothes and expensive handbags suddenly seemed ridiculous. After taking several deep breaths, she got out and walked to the entrance. Marcus Washington, a tall man with a stern expression, met her at the door. Jessica Reynolds? He asked, checking his watch. You're early. Yes, sir. I didn't want to be late on my first day. Marcus looked her up and down, noting her impractical outfit, a silk blouse, designer jeans, and high-heeled boots. I know why you're here, he said bluntly. David Sterling called me personally. You're not getting special treatment because your family has money. In fact, quite the opposite. I understand, Jessica replied quietly. Your first assignment is cleaning the bathrooms, all 6 of them. Then you'll organize the storage closets. Cleaning supplies are in the janitor's room. I'll show you where. Jessica swallowed hard. She had never cleaned a bathroom in her life. Yes, sir, she said, following him down the hallway. As Marcus walked ahead of her, Jessica noticed children starting to arrive. They ran past her with energy and laughter, heading to different rooms. A small girl with braids stopped and looked up at her curiously before running off. For the first time, Jessica felt something beyond shame and fear, a tiny spark of curiosity about these children and this place where she would spend the next 6 months. At Sterling National Bank, David reviewed the signed agreement with Sarah. "I want daily reports on Jessica's community service," he instructed, "and weekly updates on the building repairs and worker compensation." "Of course," Sarah replied. "But David, may I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead." "Is this really about justice, or did part of you want to see Jessica Reynolds scrubbing toilets as punishment for what she did to your daughters?" David considered the question carefully. "Maybe both," he admitted. "But by the time her 1,000 hours are complete, I hope it will have become something more than punishment for her. I hope it will be transformation." As Jessica stood in the janitor's closet at the children's center, staring at cleaning supplies she couldn't identify, she realized her life had completely changed in less than 24 hours. The Bahamas trip was canceled. Her credit cards were frozen as her father began liquidating assets to pay back wages to workers. Yet as she heard children laughing in nearby classrooms, something unexpected happened. Her shoulders straightened with resolve rather than defeat. Maybe, just maybe, there was a purpose to this punishment beyond merely paying for her cruelty. Jessica struggled with the unfamiliar cleaning supplies. The toilet brush felt awkward in her hands, and the strong smell of disinfectant made her eyes water. By noon on her first day at Oakwood Children's Center, her back ached, her hands were red from cleaning chemicals, and her expensive boots were splashed with water. "You missed a spot," Marcus Washington said, pointing to a stain on one of the bathroom floors. "This isn't a quick wipe down. These bathrooms need to be cleaned for children who already have enough challenges in their lives." Jessica nodded and returned to scrubbing. She could feel the stares of the center's regular staff, their whispered comments following her as she moved between bathrooms. "That's the rich girl who has to do community service. I heard she did something awful to some kids. Bet she's never cleaned anything in her life." When Jessica finally finished the bathrooms, Marcus inspected her work with a critical eye. "Acceptable, but barely," he said. "Tomorrow, you'll do better. Now start on the storage closets. They need to be emptied, cleaned, and reorganized." Jessica opened the first closet door and stared at the chaos inside. Toys, art supplies, and sports equipment piled haphazardly on shelves and across the floor. "Where do I even start?" she muttered to herself. "By taking everything out first," answered a voice behind her. Jessica turned to see a young woman with kind eyes and a center staff badge reading Tasha. "I'm not supposed to help you," Tasha said quietly, "but I can tell you how to approach it. Empty everything, sort by type, clean the shelves, then put it back organized." "Thank you," Jessica said, surprised by the kindness. "Don't thank me yet," Tasha replied. "You've got 6 of these closets to do." By the end of her first week, Jessica had cleaned all 6 bathrooms daily, organized 4 storage closets, and mopped every hallway in the building. She went home each night exhausted, her body aching in places she didn't know could hurt. In her apartment, Jessica collapsed onto her couch and called her friend Amanda. "I can't do this," Jessica cried. "It's so hard and everyone hates me there." "Can't your dad get you out of it?" Amanda asked. "Maybe pay someone to do the hours for you." "No, it doesn't work that way. Sarah Chen checks on me every day," she reports back to David Sterling. "This is insane, Jess. All because you were mean to some kids? Everyone has bad days." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "It's more than that, Amanda. My dad's company, we did bad things, really bad things, like unsafe buildings and not paying workers properly." "Oh," Amanda said, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, how much longer do you have?" 960 more hours. The following Monday, Jessica arrived at the center wearing plain jeans and a simple t-shirt instead of her designer clothes. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore sneakers instead of boots. Marcus noticed the change. "More practical," he commented. "Good. What am I doing today?" Jessica asked, expecting more cleaning. "The same bathrooms need cleaning every day. Marcus replied. "But after that, we need help sorting donated clothes for the children." In the donation room, Jessica carefully folded tiny t-shirts and pants, organizing them by size. As she worked, she heard a commotion in the hallway. A small girl, no more than 5 years old, ran into the room and hid behind a clothing rack. "Please don't tell them I'm here," the little girl whispered. Before Jessica could respond, 2 older boys appeared at the door. "Hey, have you seen a little girl? This tall with braids?" one boy asked. Jessica noticed tears in the hidden child's eyes. "No," she lied. "Try the playground." After the boys left, the small girl emerged from her hiding place. "Thank you," she said. "They keep calling me Dirty Zoe because my clothes are old." Jessica looked at the child more closely. Zoe had beautiful brown skin and bright eyes, but her clothes were indeed worn and too small. "Well, Zoe, it's your lucky day," Jessica said, reaching for the pile of clothes she had just sorted. "I happen to be in charge of all these clothes right now. Would you like to pick some new ones?" Zoe's face lit up. "Really? I can have new clothes?" "Of course. Let's find some that fit you perfectly." Jessica helped Zoe try on several outfits, and the little girl twirled happily in her new clothes. "You're nice," Zoe said. "Not like they said you would be." Jessica froze. "What did they say about me?" "That you were a mean lady who had to work here because you did something bad." Jessica knelt down to Zoe's level. "They're right. I did do something bad. I was mean to 3 little girls who needed help, just like you needed help today. That's why I'm here, to learn to be better." Zoe considered this. "Everyone makes mistakes," she said simply. "My teacher says what matters is if you fix them." From the doorway, Marcus watched the interaction silently. At the Sterling home, the triplets prepared for another school visit as part of the Kindness Matters program. Maya carefully placed her presentation cards in order while Mila practiced her part. "Daddy," Mila asked suddenly, "do you think the Sand Lady is sorry for what she did to us?" David looked up from helping Mia with her shoes. "I don't know yet, sweetheart." "Why do you ask?" "In our presentation, we talk about forgiveness being important, but I wondered if she was actually sorry or just pretending." Emma glanced at David, waiting for his response. "That's a very good question," David said carefully. "Sometimes people say they're sorry because they got caught, not because they truly understand they did something wrong. Real change takes time." "How will we know if she's really sorry?" Mila persisted. "We'll know by her actions," David replied. "If someone is truly sorry, they change their behavior." Later that evening, David received a call from Sarah Chen. "I have the first weekly report on Jessica Reynolds," Sarah said. "She's completed all assigned tasks, even the most unpleasant ones. Marcus Washington reports that she's been punctual and hasn't complained." "That's surprising," David admitted. "I expected more resistance." "There's something else," Sarah added. "Marcus observed her today helping a child who was being bullied. She showed genuine kindness and patience. He said it seemed authentic, not performed." David was silent for a moment. One good interaction doesn't prove transformation. "Of course not, but it's a start." 2 weeks into her community service, Jessica was surprised when Marcus called her into his office. "I have a new assignment for you," he said. "We need someone to help with the younger children during afternoon activities. Tasha recommended you." "Me? Working directly with the children?" Jessica asked, surprised. "You've shown some natural ability with Zoe. She asks about you every day." Marcus leaned forward. "But let me be clear. This is a promotion based on practical needs, not a reward. These children are vulnerable. They need consistency and kindness. Can you provide that?" "Yes," Jessica said firmly. "I can." "We'll see," Marcus replied. "You'll start tomorrow with the 4- and 5-year-olds. Tasha will supervise you." That night, Robert Reynolds visited his daughter's apartment. He looked tired and older somehow, the strain of the past weeks evident on his face. "How is the community service going?" he asked. "Actually, it's..." Not what I expected, Jessica admitted. The work is hard, but the children are amazing. There's this little girl named Zoe. Jessica, Robert interrupted. I've had to sell the yacht and the vacation home. We're putting the art collection up for auction next week. The company is barely surviving while we pay back all those workers. I know, Dad. I'm sorry. Robert sighed. I'm not blaming you. Not entirely. The truth is, I taught you to view people as either useful or irrelevant. I built a business cutting corners and exploiting people. David Sterling was right about that. Jessica stared at her father in surprise. You've changed your mind about him? Let's just say I'm reconsidering many things. We made serious mistakes, Jess. Both of us. Now we have to do better. The next day, Jessica entered the classroom where 15 young children were playing. Tasha showed her where the supplies were kept and explained the afternoon routine. Today we're doing art projects, Tasha said. Each child needs help with scissors and glue. Zoe ran up to Jessica immediately. Miss Jessica, you're in our class now? Yes, I am, Jessica smiled. I'm here to help with your art project. Will you sit with me? I saved you a spot. Jessica looked at the small table where Zoe had carefully placed an extra chair. I would love to. As Jessica helped the children with their projects, she felt something she hadn't experienced before, a sense of purpose. The children didn't care about her designer clothes or expensive car. They only cared that she was patient and kind when they struggled with scissors or spilled glue. When Sarah Chen arrived for her daily check-in, she found Jessica sitting on the floor, helping children create paper butterflies, her clothes spotted with glue and glitter. Jessica didn't even notice Sarah's presence. So focused was she on helping a little boy who was struggling to cut along the lines. There you go, Tyler, Jessica encouraged. That's perfect. You're doing great. Sarah made notes in her file before quietly leaving. Her report to David Sterling that evening would show the first real signs of change in Jessica Reynolds, not just compliance with punishment, but genuine engagement with the children she was meant to serve. 3 months passed quickly. As spring turned to summer in Oakwood, Jessica Reynolds arrived at the Children's Center each morning at 7:30, a full 30 minutes before her shift began. Her designer clothes remained in her closet, replaced by practical jeans, t-shirts, and comfortable sneakers. Her once perfect manicure was now simple and short, better suited for art projects and playground time. Miss Jessica! Zoe called out, running across the center's yard as Jessica walked from her car. The little girl had become Jessica's shadow, always eager to start their day together. Good morning, Zoe, Jessica smiled, kneeling to accept a hug. You're here early today. Mom had to go to work early. Mr. Marcus let me wait in his office until you came. Jessica took Zoe's hand as they walked into the building. Well, I'm here now. Want to help me set up for art class? Inside, the center looked different than it had 3 months ago. The walls displayed colorful new children's artwork. The storage closets Jessica had organized remained neat, with new shelves she had purchased herself. The playground had new equipment, funded by donations Jessica had secured from her wealthy friends. Marcus Washington watched from his office as Jessica and Zoe prepared the art room, laying out supplies with practiced efficiency. She's not the same person who walked in here 3 months ago, Tasha said, joining Marcus at the window. No, she's not, Marcus agreed. I never expected this level of commitment. The children adore her, especially Tyler. No one else could get through to him before. Marcus nodded. Tyler Adams was 7 years old with severe behavioral issues stemming from an unstable home life. He had broken toys, pushed other children, and refused to participate in activities until Jessica. She had somehow connected with the angry boy, showing endless patience when he tested boundaries. Later that morning, Jessica sat with Tyler during reading time. He struggled with each word, growing frustrated. I hate reading, he shouted, pushing the book away. I'm stupid. You're not stupid, Tyler, Jessica said calmly. "Reading is just a skill that takes practice, like when you learn to throw a ball." The other kids laugh at me. "Then we'll practice where they can't hear. 5 minutes every day, just you and me." Tyler looked at her suspiciously. "You won't get mad if I mess up?" "Never," Jessica promised. "Everyone learns differently." Across town at Reynolds Real Estate, Robert Reynolds met with city officials and construction supervisors. The office felt emptier after necessary layoffs, but the company was surviving. "These are the corrected building plans for the Riverside apartments," Robert explained, pointing to blueprints spread across the table. "We've reinforced all support structures beyond code requirements as promised." The city inspector reviewed the plans. "This is impressive, Robert. Quite a change from your previous projects. We're committed to doing things right from now on. Our workers are all properly documented and receiving fair wages. We've established a health insurance program for all employees. These changes must be affecting your bottom line." Robert nodded. "They are. But we're finding that quality work attracts quality clients. We're building a different kind of reputation now." After the meeting, Robert called his daughter. "How's it going today?" he asked. "Great," Jessica replied. "I just got approved to take the children on a field trip to the Science Museum next week. My first official outing with them." "That's wonderful. Listen, Sarah Chen visited today. She's pleased with our progress on the building safety corrections. Said we're ahead of schedule." "That's good to hear, Dad." "Jess, are you really happy working with those children? This isn't just about fulfilling the community service hours anymore, is it?" Jessica watched as Tyler carefully practiced writing his name. "No, it's not. I've never felt this useful before. These kids need me." At the Sterling home, the triplets practiced their presentation for another school visit. The Kindness Matters program had expanded to schools throughout Texas, making the girls minor celebrities among children their age. "Daddy," Maya said during a break, "can we visit the children's center where the sand lady works?" David looked up in surprise. "Why would you want to do that?" "We talk about forgiveness in our presentation," Mila explained. "But we've never actually seen the sand lady again to forgive her." "Her name is Jessica," Mia added. "We heard you and Mommy talking about her." Emma, who had been listening from the doorway, joined the conversation. "Girls, that might not be a good idea. Jessica is working there as part of her punishment." "But our program says forgiveness is important," Maya insisted. "How can we tell other kids to forgive if we don't do it ourselves?" David and Emma exchanged looks. "Let me think about it," David said finally. That evening, David called Marcus Washington. "The girls want to visit the center," David explained, "to see Jessica. Are you sure that's wise?" Marcus asked. "It could be traumatic for them. They're the ones who suggested it. They want to practice what they've been teaching other children about forgiveness." "And how do you feel about it?" David paused. "I'm conflicted. Part of me still sees Jessica as the cruel woman who hurt my daughters, but Sarah's reports show significant change." "She's not the same person," Marcus confirmed. "The transformation is remarkable. The Jessica who threw sand at your daughters wouldn't recognize the Jessica who works here now. Then we'll visit tomorrow afternoon, if that's acceptable." After hanging up, Marcus found Jessica helping clean up after lunch. "Jessica, I need to speak with you privately." In his office, Marcus explained the situation. "The Sterling family is visiting tomorrow. The girls specifically asked to see you." Jessica paled. "Mr. Sterling is bringing his daughters here to see me?" "Yes. How do you feel about that?" Jessica sat down, her hands shaking slightly. Terrified, ashamed. "I don't know what to say to them. Just speak from your heart. If your apology is sincere, they'll know it." The next day, Jessica was more nervous than she had ever been. She changed her shirt twice after getting stains during morning activities. She practiced what she would say, then decided it sounded rehearsed and false. "Just be honest," Tasha advised, seeing Jessica's anxiety. Those little girls just want to know you're sorry." At exactly 3 o'clock, David and Emma Sterling arrived with their daughters. The triplets wore matching blue dresses with white ribbons in their curly brown hair. They held hands as they entered the center, looking around curiously. Marcus greeted them and led them to the art room, where Jessica was helping children finish a project. She looked up as they entered, and for a moment, everyone was silent. Jessica saw the 3 little girls she had taunted that day, the same faces that now appeared on billboards across Oakwood. They seemed smaller in person than in her memory. The triplets stared at Jessica, recognizing her as the Sand Lady, but seeing someone different from the mean woman in the white car. "Girls," David said gently, "this is Miss Jessica. She works here now." Jessica approached slowly and knelt down to be at eye level with the triplets. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. "Maya, Mia, and Mila," she said, having learned their names. "I want to tell you how sorry I am for what I did to you that day. I was cruel and mean for no reason. You didn't deserve that, and I've regretted it every day since." The triplets looked at each other, communicating in that silent way that only they understood. "Why were you so mad at us?" Maya asked finally. "We didn't do anything to you." Jessica fought back tears. "You're right. You didn't do anything. I was unhappy with myself and my life, but that's no excuse. I took my anger out on you because you were there and because I could. It was wrong." "Are you still mad all the time?" Mila asked. Jessica smiled slightly. "No, not anymore. Working here with these children has changed me. They've taught me what truly matters." Zoe, who had been watching from nearby, approached the group. "Miss Jessica is nice now," she told the triplets confidently. "She helps me with my reading and keeps the big kids from being mean to me." Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out something colorful. "We made you this," she said, holding out a woven friendship bracelet. "Our counselor helped us. It's to show we forgive you." Jessica couldn't stop her tears this time. She held out her wrist, and Maya tied the bracelet around it. "Thank you," Jessica whispered. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I promise to honor it by continuing to change." David watched the interaction with mixed emotions. He had orchestrated Jessica's punishment expecting compliance, perhaps even resentment. Instead, he was witnessing what appeared to be genuine transformation. Emma touched his arm. "She's different," she said quietly. David nodded. Marcus was right. The Jessica who threw sand at our daughters wouldn't recognize the Jessica standing before us now. After the formal apology, the triplets asked to see the center. Jessica and Zoe gave them a tour, showing them the art room, the playground, and the reading corner. The girls quickly found common interests, talking about books and favorite games. As they prepared to leave, David approached Jessica. "Thank you for speaking honestly with my daughters," he said. "It meant a lot to them, and to Emma and me." "Thank you for bringing them," Jessica replied. "And thank you for what you did." "What I did? Sending me here instead of destroying my father's business completely? You could have, you know. Instead, you gave us a chance to become better people. My father's company is actually building safer buildings now. And She looked at the children playing nearby. "I found something I never knew I was missing." David studied her face, seeing sincerity where he had once seen only entitlement and cruelty. The friendship bracelet Maya had given her was prominently displayed on her wrist, clearly cherished. As the Sterling family left, David realized that true justice had been achieved, not through punishment alone, but through transformation. Jessica Reynolds was becoming someone new, someone better, and his daughters had gained something too, the power of forgiving someone who had truly changed. The meeting with the Sterling triplets changed everything for Jessica. In the days that followed, she wore Maya's friendship bracelet constantly, touching it whenever she faced a challenge at the center. The children noticed the colorful woven band and asked about it. "It's a reminder to be kind," Jessica explained to her class. "Someone forgave me for being mean, and now I want to pass that kindness forward." 2 months later, on a warm September morning, Marcus Washington called Jessica into his office. She had just finished helping Tyler with his daily reading practice. "Today marks 1,000 hours, Marcus said, checking a form on his desk. "Your community service requirement is officially complete." Jessica looked surprised. "Already?" "I haven't been counting." "Sarah Chen has, very precisely." Marcus handed her an official certificate. "You're free to go, Jessica." Obligation fulfilled. Jessica stared at the paper, then at the classroom visible through the office window where Zoe and the other children were drawing pictures. "What if I don't want to go?" she asked quietly. Marcus smiled slightly. "I had a feeling you might say that." "Are you offering to volunteer?" "Yes, 3 days a week if that's okay. I want to keep working with the children." "We'd be happy to have you, but I thought you'd be eager to return to your old life." Jessica shook her head. "That life doesn't exist anymore, and honestly, I don't miss it." That evening, Jessica met her father for dinner at a simple restaurant downtown, very different from the expensive places they once frequented. "Congratulations on completing your service hours," Robert said, raising his water glass in a toast. "Thanks, Dad, but I'm going to continue volunteering there." Robert looked surprised. "Really? I thought once this was over, you'd want to put it behind you." "Actually, I've made a decision," Jessica said. "I want to go back to college for early childhood education." "You want to be a teacher?" "Yes. Working with these kids has shown me what I want to do with my life. I've never felt so purposeful before." Robert studied his daughter's face. "You really have changed." "So have you," Jessica pointed out. "How are the safety upgrades going?" "We've completed work on 7 buildings so far. It's expensive but necessary." Robert sipped his water. "Strangely, our reputation is actually improving. We're becoming known for ethical practices, and that's attracting better clients." "Dad, I've been thinking about my trust fund." Robert raised his eyebrows. "What about it?" "I want to use part of it to create a scholarship program for children from the center. Many of them come from families that can't afford enrichment activities like summer camps or special classes." "That's a wonderful idea, Jessica. I'm proud of you." The next morning, Jessica received a call from Sarah Chen. "David Sterling would like to invite you and your father to the 1-year anniversary celebration of the Kindness Matters program," Sarah said. "It's next Friday at Oakwood Elementary School." Jessica hesitated. "Are you sure he wants me there? After everything that happened?" "He specifically requested your presence. He says the triplets are asking for you." At the Sterling home, David reviewed the plans for the celebration. The Kindness Matters program had exceeded all expectations, reaching schools throughout Texas. Teachers reported significant improvements in classroom behavior and reductions in bullying. "The program is expanding nationwide next month," David told Emma. 10 major corporations have provided funding." "It's incredible," Emma agreed. "And to think it all started because of what happened to the girls." "Speaking of the girls," David said, "they've asked if Zoe can come to the celebration. Apparently they've been writing letters to her since our visit to the center." Emma smiled. "They've mentioned Zoe several times. I think they feel a connection to her, another child who experienced bullying." "I've invited Jessica and Robert Reynolds to the celebration," David added. "I want to publicly acknowledge Jessica's transformation. Are you sure that's wise? It will remind everyone of the incident." "The incident is already part of our story, but the ending has changed. Jessica has genuinely transformed, and that's worth recognizing." On the day of the celebration, Oakwood Elementary School's auditorium was filled with educators, business leaders, and families. The triplets, now 9 years old, were dressed in matching yellow dresses, excited to perform a song with their classmates. Jessica and Robert arrived early, both nervous about attending. Jessica wore a simple blue dress and, of course, the friendship bracelet from Maya. "Mr. Sterling," Robert greeted David at the entrance, "Thank you for inviting us." "Thank you for coming," David replied. "We have special seats reserved for you in the front row." Jessica noticed Zoe sitting with the other children from the center, Marcus beside them. She waved, and Zoe ran over for a hug. "I've never been to a big school before," Zoe said excitedly. "And I get to see Maya, Mia, and Mila again." "Yes, you do," Jessica smiled. "They're excited to see you too." The celebration began with a welcome from the school principal, followed by David's speech about the program's impact. "1 year ago," David said, "a personal experience taught me how vulnerable children are to cruelty and how powerful kindness can be as an antidote. The Kindness Matters program began with my daughters sharing their story, and it has grown into a movement that will now reach schools nationwide." The triplets performed their song about kindness with their classmates, their voices sweet and clear. When they finished, the audience applauded warmly. Then David did something unexpected. "Today I want to acknowledge someone whose journey is an important part of our story. Jessica Reynolds, would you please join me on stage?" Jessica froze, startled. Robert nudged her gently, and she walked to the stage with shaking legs. "Many of you know that the Kindness Matters program was inspired by an incident involving my daughters," David said. "What you may not know is that Jessica was the person involved in that incident." A murmur ran through the audience. Jessica felt her face grow hot with shame. "But this isn't a story about an unkind act," David continued. "It's a story about transformation." Jessica has spent the past 6 months working at Oakwood Children's Center, completing 1,000 hours of community service. According to everyone there, she has shown extraordinary dedication and compassion. David turned to Jessica. "Would you like to say a few words?" Jessica hadn't prepared anything. She looked out at the audience and saw the triplets watching her. She saw Zoe smiling encouragingly. "6 months ago, I was a different person," Jessica began. "I was selfish and thoughtless. I hurt 3 innocent children because I was unhappy with my own life. I didn't understand then that how we treat others matters." She touched the friendship bracelet on her wrist. "Thanks to the forgiveness of the Sterling family and the children at Oakwood Children's Center, I've learned what truly matters in life. Kindness isn't just something we do, it's something we become through practice. I'm still learning every day, but now I have purpose. I'm returning to college to become a teacher, and I'm establishing a scholarship program for underprivileged children." The audience applauded as Jessica returned to her seat. Later, during the reception, David approached Robert. "I've been reviewing plans for affordable housing in Oakwood," David said. "The city needs quality homes that working families can actually afford. Would you be interested in discussing a possible partnership?" Robert looked surprised. "You'd consider working with Reynolds Real Estate after everything that happened? Your company has proven it can change. You've corrected safety issues and improved worker conditions. I believe in second chances, Robert." "I'd be honored to discuss it," Robert replied. Nearby, Emma and Jessica chatted about the Children's Center. "The triplets talk about Zoe all the time," Emma said. "They've become quite protective of her." "Zoe talks about them too," Jessica smiled. "She keeps their letters in a special box." "I've been thinking," Emma said. "The Kindness Matters curriculum would be wonderful for the Children's Center. Would you be interested in helping implement it there?" "Absolutely," Jessica replied enthusiastically. "The children would love it." Across the room, the triplets introduced Zoe to their school friends. The little girl who had once hidden from bullies now stood confidently among her new friends, proudly wearing a Kindness Matters t-shirt that matched the ones the triplets wore. Maya nudged her sisters and pointed to where their father was talking with Robert Reynolds. "Look," she whispered. "Daddy and the Sand Lady's daddy are friends now." "Her name is Jessica," Mia corrected gently. "And she's not the Sand Lady anymore. She's Miss Jessica, who helps kids like Zoe." "Like us," Mila added. "Remember how scared we were that day? Now we help other kids not be scared." As the celebration ended, David watched the various connections that had formed between his daughters and Zoe, between Emma and Jessica, and potentially between his business and Robert's. What had begun as a quest for justice after a cruel act had evolved into something far more powerful, a community committed to kindness and transformation. The partnerships formed during the Kindness Matters celebration flourished over time. What began as tentative connections grew into something much stronger and more meaningful than anyone could have predicted. 5 years passed. Oakwood transformed from a town divided by wealth and status into a community united by shared values. The Kindness Matters program now operated in schools across all 50 states, teaching millions of children about empathy and compassion. On a bright spring morning, 13-year-old Maya Sterling stood behind a podium at a youth leadership conference in Chicago. Her sisters, Mia and Mila, sat nearby, ready to join for the question and answer session. "When I was 8 years old," Maya told the audience of middle school students, "someone was deliberately cruel to me and my sisters. That experience hurt us, but it also began something important. Our father created the Kindness Matters program, which has now reached over 3 million students nationwide." A girl in the audience raised her hand. "Weren't you scared to talk about what happened to you?" "At first, yes," Maya admitted, "but sharing our story helped other kids talk about their experiences with bullying. We learned that being open about painful experiences can help others feel less alone." In Oakwood, Jessica Reynolds hung a new sign outside the expanded Oakwood Children's Center. The building was now 3 times its original size, with bright classrooms, a modern playground, and a community garden where children grew vegetables for local food banks. "What do you think?" Jessica asked Zoe, now 10 years old and a regular volunteer despite her young age. "It's perfect," Zoe said, admiring the colorful sign with its new logo. "When will the new children arrive?" "Next week. We'll be able to serve 150 children now, instead of just 50. Marcus Washington approached, carrying clipboards for them both. "The inspection is in 30 minutes. Are we ready?" Jessica smiled at her fiancé. The gold band on her left hand caught the sunlight. "Everything's ready. We've triple-checked all the safety requirements." "I still can't believe how much has changed," Marcus said, looking around at the beautiful facility. 5 years ago, this place was falling apart, and you were cleaning bathrooms as punishment." "Best punishment I ever received," Jessica replied, squeezing his hand. Across town, David Sterling and Robert Reynolds walked through Harmony Heights, the affordable housing development they had built together. 100 families now lived in safe, well-constructed homes, including many of the construction workers who had built the complex. "Mrs. Garcia's garden is looking amazing," David commented, nodding toward a small but flourishing vegetable patch outside one of the homes. "She gives tomatoes to everyone in the building," Robert replied. "Says it's her way of giving back." A young man approached them. "Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Sterling, I wanted to thank you again. My family never thought we could afford a place like this in Oakwood." "You earned it, Miguel," Robert said. "Your work on the construction team was exceptional." As the young man walked away, David turned to Robert. "Ready for Phase 2? The funding is secured and the plans are approved. We break ground on Riverside Commons next month." "Emma is looking forward to the anniversary dinner tonight," David said as they walked to their cars. 5 years since Kindness Matters began. "Jessica is nervous about the announcement," Robert admitted. "She still sometimes feels she doesn't deserve such opportunities." "She's earned it," David replied firmly. "No one else is better qualified." That evening, both families gathered at the Sterling home for a special dinner. The dining room was decorated with Kindness Matters banners and photos showing the program's growth over 5 years. The triplets, now tall teenagers with the same curly brown hair but distinct personal styles, helped set the table while talking excitedly about their recent trip to Chicago. "We met kids from 20 different states at the conference," Mia told Zoe, who had been invited as a special guest. "Did you tell them about our scholarship fund?" Zoe asked. "Yes." Everyone thought it was cool that kids started a scholarship for other kids. Emma brought in the final dish and called everyone to the table. David sat at one end with Robert at the other. Jessica and Marcus sat together with the triplets and Zoe filling in the remaining seats. "Before we eat," David said, raising his glass of water, "I want to toast the 5th anniversary of Kindness Matters." What began as a response to a painful moment has grown into something that's changing lives across the country and bringing unlikely people together, Robert added, smiling at his daughter and future son-in-law. After dinner, Emma stood and tapped her glass for attention. "I have an announcement," she said. "As many of you know, we're opening the Kindness Academy next fall, a school specifically designed to incorporate empathy education into every subject." Everyone nodded. The project had been in development for 2 years. "We've been searching for the right person to lead our early childhood education program," Emma continued. "We need someone who truly understands both academic excellence and emotional intelligence." She turned to Jessica. "Jessica, we would be honored if you would join us as the Academy's Director of Early Childhood Education." Jessica's eyes widened. "Me? Are you serious?" "Absolutely," Emma confirmed. "Your work at the Children's Center has been exceptional. Your early education degree and your personal journey make you uniquely qualified." Jessica looked around the table, her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Zoe encouraged. Jessica laughed through her tears. Yes, I would be honored." The triplets exchanged excited glances before Mila stood up. "We have an announcement too," she said. "We started a special scholarship fund called Zoe's Friends." Zoe looked surprised. "You named it after me?" "Yes," Maya explained. "We saved our allowance for a year and then asked Dad to help us set it up properly. It will help kids from the Children's Center attend summer camps and special programs they couldn't otherwise afford." "We wanted to do something that would make a direct difference," Mia added. "Not just talk about kindness, but actually do something kind." Zoe jumped up to hug each of the triplets in turn. "This is the best thing ever." The following morning, David drove alone to Pine Avenue. The street looked different now. Where his daughters had once sat crying on a curb, there was now a small pocket park called Kindness Corner. It had benches, flowering plants, and a small plaque that read, "From this spot of momentary unkindness grew a community of compassion." David sat on one of the benches, remembering that day 5 years ago when he had found his daughters covered in sand, crying from Jessica's cruelty. He remembered his anger, his desire for justice, and his careful plan to teach Jessica a lesson. "Mr. Sterling?" David looked up to see Jessica standing there looking professional in her teacher clothes, so different from the entitled young woman who had once thrown sand at his children. "Jessica," he greeted her. "What brings you here?" "Same as you, I think," she replied, gesturing to the plaque. "Remembering where it all began." "May I?" she asked, indicating the bench. "Please." David moved over to make room. "I come here sometimes," Jessica admitted, "to remind myself of who I used to be and how far I've come." "You've come very far," David agreed. "Your work with children is remarkable." "Thank you for what you did," Jessica said quietly. "Not just for the community or the kids, but for me. You could have destroyed me, but instead you gave me a chance to become better." "I almost did destroy you," David admitted. "At first, my plan was simply punishment. I wanted you to feel powerless, the way my daughters felt that day. I deserved it, perhaps. But what you deserved less than punishment was the opportunity for redemption. Everyone does." A school group approached the park, led by a teacher who gathered them around the plaque. "Children," the teacher said, "this is Kindness Corner. 5 years ago, something happened here that changed our town. A moment of unkindness led to an important lesson about how we should treat each other. The children listened attentively as the teacher told a simplified version of the story. The person who was unkind learned to be kind, the teacher explained, and the children who were hurt learned about forgiveness. Now they all work together to teach others about kindness. "Is the story real?" one child asked. "Yes, it's very real," the teacher answered. "The people in this story still live in Oakwood." "What's the most important part of the story?" another child asked. The teacher thought for a moment. "That people can change. That kindness matters, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the chance to become better." Jessica and David watched the class from their bench, both moved by hearing their story told as a lesson. "She got it right," Jessica said softly. "The chance to become better was a gift I never expected and didn't know I needed." As evening fell on Kindness Corner, David realized that true power wasn't in the ability to punish those who do wrong, but in creating opportunities for transformation. He had set out to teach Jessica Reynolds a lesson about consequences, but in the end, they had all learned something far more valuable about redemption, forgiveness, and the lasting impact of kindness. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.